Next up, we have Harry Bezoyan.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, crisis. We keep hearing that word, and I agree 100%. There's absolutely an affordable crisis housing. Crisis in affordable housing. I think all the friends of Arrowdale would agree with that. Nobody's disputing that. What we can understand is why the funds set aside, and I know there's lots of options. Actually, Dave said there were 6 that I'm not even aware of. This is just one that I'm going to throw out there. What we can understand is why the funds set aside for the West Brant Sports Complex can't simply be put towards affordable housing. I know it sounds like it's easier said than done. And it's true because, I guess it's true because that's what I was told by a counselor, and I quote, "That's not how it works." So I decided to educate myself on how it works. So I called City Hall and I found out exactly what I thought I would find out and exactly what I'm sure you counselors already know. That this city, and what the city confirmed with me, and please correct me if I am wrong, and I don't know the terms, I believe a motion was brought forth this evening to take the funds allocated to the $36 million, I believe, for the sports complex and put those funds into affordable housing right now to avert the crisis. Sorry, where am I here? And the council, and if the council all agreed, if we brought this forth tonight and the council all agreed, it would be voted on the next meeting, kind of what we talked about earlier. We do it twice. And if the next week, when it was brought up again, and all the councilors put up their hand again, it's done. Crisis averted. That's 2 3-minute votes in 2 different meetings a week apart, and we have no more crisis. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the process. That's what City Hall told me. That's what I thought. So now I believe we've proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that it can be done in 2 6-minute votes spread over 2 weeks apart in 2 meetings, with nobody breaking a sweat out of doing it like this. So now, once we know that it can be done, it becomes a matter of priority. Simple matter of priority. We have the funds. We can easily do it. It just basically means that our community, which sadly is saying that we have the funds, we govern ourselves in this matter with respect to these meetings and how they work and the votes, which means we can do it. So if we don't do it, now it becomes, again, a priority thing, and it means as a community, we're saying that we'd rather build a $36 million sports complex rather than keep people off the streets in our city that are freezing and need affordable housing. What also baffles me, that the city's come to the table wanting to commit to selling a property to the point of no return, which I believe is what's going to happen here tonight. And they have no real value on the property. It would be different if they said, we got this buyer and they want to overpay or at least pay fair market value, but they haven't. They've spit out a number, but as a local real estate broker, I can tell you that in my vast experience, the topography for this property with all the hills and everything makes much less buildable space, and there could be drainage issues and all that kind of stuff. This property could only be worth, $10 million. But once we commit, we commit. And there's no actual value on the land. Self-admittedly, if I understood last week's meeting, the council has said that we don't have the land to build on anyway. So now we're going to sell a piece of land we don't know what's worth to build houses on property that we self-admittedly don't have right now, which is just, it's absurd to me. So, my stance is obviously that this gem of a golf course should not be for sale ever. Looks like I got about 1:15 left, so I've got a little bit more. I think it's important to point out that the 5 realtors that stood before you here last week that supposedly represent the Brantford Regional Real Estate Association, which I am a member of, I just want everybody to know that those 5 that stood here, who I know very well, most of them, and the rest of the membership, which is about 400 or so, had no knowledge or input of that. And no knowledge or input of that. And the reason I say this is because I think the weight of 5 individuals versus the weight of 400, I would assume that everybody thought, like I would if I was at home or here watching, that if they represented us as the Brantford Regional Real Estate Association, that represented the whole. And I guess technically on paper it did, but I'm here to tell you that represented 5 individuals, and the other roughly 395 of us had no knowledge of the meeting, of the representation, and no input into it. And I have more, but I think I got about 40 seconds left. So if anybody's got questions, fire away.
Yeah, about 20 seconds. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Carp.
Harry, you've been in the business, real estate business for a long time, pretty
About
much all
15
your
years, yeah.
life.
A little over 15 years.
Yeah, so when you contacted the RIA that came here last week and told us how they represent everyone, because they said they represented the realtors, when you contacted them and find out who asked them to come here, what was their response?
I contacted this, good question, I contacted the CEO because I was kind of livid. I actually spoke to them out in the hallway here afterwards because I felt very slighted that as part of that membership that I actually thought they were here when I seen them. I'm like, yay, you know, realtors for saving the golf course, to find out that they all stood up and said, no, we're here to sell the golf course. And what the CEO, the newly elected CEO of our Brantford Real Estate Board, told me was that the city asked them to speak on behalf of selling Airedale.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
So let's move on. We got Peter Scheer. Thank you very much, Harry.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Make sure